Millionaire twins lost in dangerous neighborhood. A poor teacher took them in and got a big surprise. The torrential rain had transformed the streets of Chicago's South Side into dangerous rivers, while lightning intermittently illuminated the abandoned buildings and broken windows that marked this neighborhood forgotten by American prosperity. It was a Thursday night when fate decided to intertwine three lives in ways no one could have imagined. Marcus Thompson, a 34-year-old math teacher, walked quickly down Ashland Avenue, protecting under his worn coat a stack of graded tests that represented hours of unpaid overtime work. His one-bedroom apartment cost $800 monthly, nearly half his salary, but it was what he could afford working at Malcolm X Elementary School, one of the district's most underserved schools. That same night, on the other side of the city, in the luxurious Gold Coast neighborhood, a silent tragedy was unfolding. Oliver and Emma Whitmore, 8-year-old twins, had been forgotten in the family limousine after an explosive argument between their parents, Richard and Victoria Whitmore, owners of a real estate empire valued at $200 million. The driver, James, nervous about the family tension and worried about a medical emergency with his own wife, made a fatal error. He left the sleeping children in the back seat and drove to the hospital, completely forgetting his responsibility. When Oliver and Emma woke up, it was already deep into the night. The limousine was parked in an area they had never seen before: narrow streets, broken streetlights, and the distant sound of sirens echoing between deteriorating buildings. James's phone wasn't answering, and the limousine's panel was locked. Scared and confused, the twins got out of the vehicle in search of help, dressed in expensive clothes. Oliver in his navy blue blazer from Pemberton Academy Private School, and Emma in her imported wool dress. They attracted dangerous attention on those streets where violence was a daily reality. Their educated voices and refined accent contrasted brutally with the hostile environment around them. Marcus was 2 blocks from his house when he heard the sobbing. Initially, he thought they were abandoned cats, but when he approached the source of the sound, he found 2 children hugging each other, shivering from cold and fear behind a garbage container. The contrast was shocking. These children clearly didn't belong in that place. The teacher immediately recognized the signs of danger. He knew that lost children in that neighborhood could quickly become victims of predators or traffickers operating in the shadows. Without hesitation, he crouched down to their level, maintaining a respectful distance so as not to frighten them further. Oliver, always protective of his sister, tried to maintain composure, but it was visible that both were terrified. Emma held tightly to a small Louis Vuitton teddy bear, a gift from their parents that had cost more than Marcus earned in a week. Marcus immediately realized these weren't neighborhood children. Their clothes, posture, and even the fear they showed were different. He knew he had to act quickly, as the streets became even more dangerous after 10 p.m., when local gangs intensified their activities. With careful movements and a calm voice, Marcus managed to gain enough trust for the children to accompany him to his apartment. During the 3-block walk, he remained constantly alert, protecting the twins from the curious and potentially threatening looks of the few passers-by who crossed their paths. Marcus's apartment was modest but clean and welcoming. His walls were decorated with drawings made by his students over the years, and there were books stacked on every available surface. The contrast with the twins' life was evident in every detail, from the used furniture bought at thrift stores to the small tube television that only worked when you hit the right side. Marcus offered the children what little he had: peanut butter, sandwiches, warm milk, and clean blankets, while Oliver and Emma ate voraciously, discovering they were hungrier than they had imagined. Marcus tried to understand how 2 obviously upper-class children had ended up in one of Chicago's most dangerous neighborhoods. Initial attempts to contact authorities were frustrated. It was late at night. Phone lines for social services were congested, And Marcus knew from experience that cases involving lost children could take hours or even days to be resolved properly. He decided the safest thing to do was keep the children safe until dawn. As the twins finally fell asleep in his bed, Marcus insisted on sleeping on the couch. He couldn't stop thinking about the bizarre circumstances that had brought these children to him. There was something about the whole situation that didn't make sense. How had two clearly wealthy children ended up alone and lost in his neighborhood? Why hadn't anyone reported their disappearance yet? That same night, on the other side of the city, Richard Whitmore was discovering that his children had disappeared. The panic that settled in the $15 million mansion on Lakeshore Drive was palpable. Victoria, his wife, had assumed the children were with him after the fight, while Richard had assumed they were with their mother. The discovery of the error cost them precious hours. James, the driver, was at the hospital beside his wife, who had suffered a sudden heart attack. In his desperation, he had completely forgotten about the children in the limousine's back seat. When he finally remembered, it was almost midnight, and the limousine had been towed for illegal parking exactly where he had left it. What the Whitmores didn't know was that their children were safe in the arms of a man who earned in a year less than they spent on a single party. Marcus Thompson, a man who had dedicated his life to educating underprivileged children, now found himself at the center of a mystery that would change all their lives forever. While the city slept, three destinies intertwined irreversibly, setting the stage for revelations that would shake the foundations of two families and question everything they thought they knew about class, worth, and the true meaning of family. Dawn brought with it a series of discoveries that would transform that extraordinary situation into something completely unexpected. Marcus woke up early, as he always did, but this time he found two small visitors still sleeping deeply in his bed, their angelic faces contrasting with the simple environment around them. While preparing weak coffee, the only kind his budget allowed, Marcus decided his first task would be to discover where these children had come from. When Oliver and Emma woke up, more rested and less frightened, they began providing clues about their identities. They talked about their big house with a lake view, about the many cars their parents owned, and about how they had been forgotten in James's car. At first, Marcus thought the children were fantasizing or exaggerating, as many children do. But when Emma casually mentioned that her mommy was on the news yesterday because she donated money to the hospital, something clicked in the teacher's mind. He vaguely remembered seeing something about a large, philanthropic donation on local news. A quick internet search on his old phone confirmed his suspicions. The children who had slept in his bed were Oliver and Emma Whitmore, children of one of Chicago's wealthiest families. The Chicago Tribune website had published a story 2 days earlier about the $5 million donation Victoria Whitmore had made to the new pediatric center at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Marcus felt a mixture of amazement and concern. He knew he should contact the family immediately, but something made him hesitate. During the simple breakfast oatmeal, with honey and slices of toasted bread, he observed how Oliver and Emma interacted with his modest environment. They showed no disdain or discomfort. On the contrary, they seemed genuinely fascinated by the simplicity and authenticity of his life. Emma was enchanted by his students' drawings on the wall, asking about each one of them, while Oliver carefully examined Marcus's math books, asking intelligent questions about concepts that were advanced. For his age, it was evident that, despite their material wealth, these children were hungry for something money couldn't buy: genuine attention and human connection. When Marcus finally called the number found online for Whitmore Real Estate Holdings, he was immediately transferred through multiple secretaries until reaching Victoria Whitmore. Her reaction was explosive, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something Marcus couldn't completely identify. Victoria insisted on personally coming to get the children, but asked Marcus to keep the situation discreet until she arrived. While they waited, Marcus spent the morning showing the children his school, which was only 2 blocks away. Oliver and Emma were shocked to see the precarious conditions of Malcolm X Elementary. Broken desks, outdated textbooks, cracked windows, and the absence of basic resources they considered normal at their elite private school. But what impressed them most was the affection and respect that Marcus's students showed him. Children of all ages ran to greet him, even though it was Saturday, showing him drawings they had made at home and telling him about their progress in math. It was obvious that Marcus was more than a teacher to these children. He was a mentor, a father figure, and for many, the only positive constant in their unstable lives. Victoria Whitmore arrived at noon in an armored SUV, accompanied by 2 private security guards. The elegant 42-year-old woman, wearing a Chanel outfit that had cost more than Marcus earned in 6 months, seemed completely out of place in that environment. But when she saw her children, all aristocratic composure melted away, and she hugged them with an intensity that revealed the desperation of the last 12 hours. What happened next completely changed the course of the story. While Victoria thanked Marcus profusely, offering him money that he politely refused, Oliver asked a question that silenced everyone present. "Mom, why doesn't Mr. Marcus have new books for his students if he's the best teacher in the world?" The innocent question from an 8-year-old exposed a brutal reality that Victoria, despite all her targeted philanthropy, had never really confronted. She had never been in an inner-city public school, never seen up close the conditions in which children like Marcus's students tried to learn. Emma, no less perceptive than her brother, added, "And why does his school have broken windows?" "Our school doesn't have broken windows." The innocence of the children's questions carried a powerful social critique that hit Victoria unexpectedly. At that moment, something fundamental changed in the situation's dynamics. Victoria, who had arrived expecting simply to recover her children and generously reward their savior, found herself confronted with a social reality that her wealth had allowed her to ignore. She saw through her own children's eyes the dedication of a man who worked tirelessly for children who weren't his, under conditions no child should face. The conversation that followed between Victoria and Marcus revealed layers of complexity that neither had anticipated. Marcus, initially intimidated by the presence of one of Chicago's most powerful women, discovered that behind the facade of wealth was a genuinely concerned mother who was beginning to question her life's priorities. Victoria, in turn, was impressed, not only by Marcus's kindness, but by his intelligence, passion for education, and the way her own children responded to him. She observed how Oliver and Emma behaved more naturally and happily in that simple environment than she had seen them in months in their mansion, full of expensive toys and professional nannies. The final revelation came when Victoria discovered, through casual conversation, that Marcus had been a brilliant student who had refused lucrative offers in the private sector to dedicate himself to teaching in underserved communities. She learned that he had a master's degree in mathematics education from Northwestern University, the same university where she had studied business administration, and that he had rejected multiple opportunities to work at elite private schools. What began as a simple act of gratitude transformed into something much larger. Victoria realized she had found not just the man who saved her children, but someone who could help her channel her wealth in a more meaningful and direct way. And Marcus discovered that not all wealthy people were disconnected from reality. Some just needed an opportunity to see the world through a different perspective. When the Whitmore family finally prepared to leave, Oliver and Emma begged to visit Marcus again. Victoria, looking at the teacher who had transformed a terrible night into a revelatory experience, made a proposal that would change all their lives. "Marcus, how about we have dinner together tomorrow? I have a proposition that might interest you." 6 months later, Malcolm X Elementary School had been completely renovated with an anonymous donation of $2 million. Marcus continued being a teacher, but now also directed an innovative educational program funded by the Whitmore Foundation. Oliver and Emma visited the school regularly, participating in tutoring programs where they taught and learned with children from completely different backgrounds. The story that began with two children lost in a dangerous neighborhood ended up proving that sometimes the most unlikely encounters can create the most powerful connections. Victoria discovered that true philanthropy wasn't just about writing checks, but about genuine involvement and understanding of communities' real needs. Marcus learned that not all wealth corrupts, and that some people just need guidance to use their resources meaningfully. And the children? Oliver and Emma grew up understanding that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account, but by the positive impact they have on others' lives. They learned that a teacher in a modest apartment can be richer in purpose than many millionaires in their empty mansions. The night that began with fear and uncertainty transformed into the catalyst for changes that would affect hundreds of lives, proving that sometimes destiny uses the most unexpected circumstances to unite people who can change the world together.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.